Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today I am going to be doing part 1 of my recent reads wrap up. Y'all know I haven't been filming for a while because I've just been ridiculously busy. I've mentioned it in some of my few videos that I've managed to get out. But I'm really excited because today I've got time and I am going to be filming a bunch of videos hopefully. And the first one that I need to do is my recent reads wrap up. I did not do a wrap up for May or June, so this is kind of gonna be both of them, and I'm probably gonna do it in 2 parts because it's a lot. There were a lot of NetGalley books and just a lot of books, and yeah, we're gonna be talking through them. So yeah, let me know what you think of any of these. All right, so let's jump into the wrap up. Hopefully I remember enough about these books because some of them, it's been a while. And these are in no particular order. Some of these are from May, some of these are from June. They're literally just in the order of the stack that I have them in, as well as a bunch of NetGalley books. So I'm gonna have to throw those up on the screen when I get to them. Those might be in part 2 though, so we'll see. But the first book that I grabbed off of my stack that I read is Demon Slayer Volume 1. I watched the entire anime with my husband. One reason that I may not have been reading as much lately is because my husband and I have been binge watching a ton of anime, and Demon Slayer was one of them. And after finishing the show, I wanted to get into the manga because I really enjoyed the show. My husband actually got me this really cool Demon Slayer blanket for my birthday, so I love it. But this was so good. As somebody that watched the show first, I still really enjoyed the manga. It is so much fun. And I think if you haven't read it or watched it, you might like it. I was never huge into anime and manga, but lately, I really have been. When I was younger, I watched Inuyasha and that was it. But now I'm definitely getting more and more into it. I've experienced more and more shows. Like I said, it's probably the only thing that my husband and I can agree on to watch together because we have different tastes in shows and movies, but anime kind of bridges the gap between us, so that's been really nice. But I read Volume 1. I have a couple other volumes laying around here that I'm going to try to get to soon as well. Next up, we have Django Wexler's Ship of Steel and Smoke, and I think I gave this one 3 stars if I remember right. And if I didn't, it's in my soul, it feels like it was 3 stars. It was good, but it wasn't oh my god, it was all right. So we're following our main girl who has magic, and kind of a lot of fantasy books, that common trope is if you have magic, you are kind of conscribed into the army, right? Well, she kind of avoids that for her whole life and protects her younger sister, and it's really good at that point. And then she ends up being captured and sent on this suicide mission to a ghost ship that collects magic users for sacrifice every year. And she ends up kind of meeting up with this ragtag group and having to prove herself, and she learns more about herself and the world and the magic and other magic users basically. And while it was interesting, it wasn't something that stuck with me extremely well. There was a very sweet sapphic relationship in it, so that I did really like, that they took who you thought was going to be kind of the main love interest, and it wasn't them, and it was her female friend that she started to kind of become friends with. So that I really liked, that kind of subversion on who you thought the love interest was going to be. It's not romance heavy. I have heard that further books in the series get a little more heavy on the romance, and I don't know how I feel about that, but yeah, it was okay. Then the next book we have is The Ivory Key, and this again was okay. It was another one of the ones on my exploding TBR, and I'm gonna do an entire exploding TBR wrap up for you guys too because I had some other books. But yeah, it was okay. It's a YA Indian inspired fantasy, but it does read slightly, I think, on the younger end of YA, which is fine. It just might not be totally for me. I was interested enough that I may read the next book, but I don't care enough to be oh my god, I need the next book, if that makes sense. We are following 4 siblings after their parents have died. One of them has kind of ascended to be like the ruler in this land, and one brother is in prison for betraying the family. The other one is like a member of the court, but he doesn't really get along with his sister that's now the ruler, and they are twins. And then we have the other sister who ran off and like is a bandit now. And they kind of have to all come together and work together to overcome this like big coming evil and find the MacGuffin. So it was really good and the magic was good. I just feel like it wasn't 100% for me. I actually had a second copy because I got these out of like Fairy Loot Illumicrate boxes. And I gave one to my niece who I think will like it more because she's younger. But yeah, I might unhaul this one. I don't know. I'll probably decide by the time I do my like exploding TBR wrap up though. But it was good. It just wasn't wow, if that makes sense. Like I said, I've read so many of these books like so long ago that I'm like grabbing for, okay, how can I talk about this? Next up, we have one that might surprise you because it is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, and that is Geekerella. And y'all, I loved this. I don't know what was in my head when I read this or picked it up, but I needed light and fluffy and something easy to consume, and this was it. This is a romance, a contemporary romance set around a Comic-Con type convention. So like I think the Comic-Con like aspects of it, that like nerdy aspect of it really is what kind of like hooked me and drew me in. But it's a really like cutesy type romance. It's not like a smutty type romance. We're following our one girl who is basically Cinderella, and she wants to go to the Comic-Con. And then we are also following this guy who is an actor, and he got this part on this like huge show, think Star Trek, right? And of course all the fans are like, oh, he's terrible, or he's gonna be terrible. The show's not out yet. And they end up kind of getting to know each other through text message without knowing who one another is. And it's just really cute and sweet. And I actually really liked this one, and I want to read the next book, which I already have, which I think is like Princess and the Fangirl. But honestly, this was a cute, sweet read, and I think I'm getting a little more into romance. So recommendation. I also ended up finishing A River of Silver, which is the like short story novella compilation that goes along with the Davabad trilogy. I loved it. It was so good to kind of pick up in this world and read more about what happened before, during, and after the events of all the books. Some of the stories take place like during the book, only with different POV characters, and there's like 1 or 2 that take place after. We get kind of more of a development of Dara's character. We get a little bit more of Nari and Ali after the events of the last book, and it was just good all around. The Davabad series is one of my favorites, so I knew I was gonna love this, and it was a really quick read with a bunch of just like cute short stories in this world with characters we already know and love. Then we have Jade, Fire, Gold, which I ended up liking more than I expected. I'd heard a lot of things about this book where they feel like it should have been a trilogy, not a duology. There will be a second book coming out, and that you can tell that it's going to be just a duology because a lot of the stuff at the end was smushed. And I don't fully disagree with that. I also don't fully disagree that the romance wasn't as developed as I would have liked it. Like some of it was kind of insta-love and was like whatever. But I really liked the story as a whole. I ended up really enjoying myself. We're following, again, 2 different characters. They have dual POVs. We are following a girl who is kind of orphaned and left to live with her grandmother, and then we are following like the outcast prince after his whole family is slaughtered, and the rest of his, you know, uncle that slaughtered his family had like taken over the throne from him. And they end up kind of having to ragtag work together without knowing who one another is. And the girl doesn't even know like who she is or what her deal is. And it was actually really, really good. I enjoyed it. Is it like, oh my God, fantastic? No, but did I have so much fun reading it? Yes. Then I read on NetGalley A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow. This is the second book in a Spindle Splintered, and it is a novella, and I gave this 2 stars. I was not a huge fan. I liked book 1 enough and it was good, but I really think it should have just stayed a standalone. I feel like it took our main character's like growth and characterization and just pushed it on back and said, nope, 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 nope. We're gonna see what else happens. And then the ending happened and you're like, really? That was like so anticlimactic, such a letdown. I just wasn't thrilled based on the fact that I liked book 1 and I wanted more of the character growth, and it just seemed like the character was super stagnant through the whole thing. In this series, we're following this girl who has this like strange disease that no one really knows anything about, and she's like destined to die basically. And in the first book, she ends up kind of going through a mirror into like a fairy tale land. Come to find out, she is able to like save all the sleeping beauties, and that's kind of the first book. And in the second book, she is still going through mirrors and saving sleeping beauties until she kind of gets tossed into a story that's not her own, because Sleeping Beauty is her story basically. And she gets tossed into one that's not hers. Sounds like it could be good. There is an evil queen who I absolutely loved, but yeah, it didn't live up to my expectations. I gave it 2 stars. It was meh. Then we have This Is How You Lose the Time War, which I gave like 3 or 4 stars. I can't remember. I liked this little novella, but I also might not be smart enough for this little novella. It is like time travel sci-fi, and we're following 2 characters, Red and Blue. And it's what they call, I guess, an epistolary novel. I don't know. That's a new word for me. But it's written in letters, and the whole book is not letters, but there is like a heavy focus on letters that Red and Blue leave for each other throughout time and space. And I really liked the development of their relationship, from this like cat and mouse kind of relationship where they hate each other and they're trying to like fight and kill each other, to the end where they're, you know, it develops into more, much more than it was. It was good, but I'm not that smart, I think. But no, this was really good, and I really liked seeing the 2 differences. So basically what they're trying to do is each one is trying to preserve time or save time in their own like timeline. And there's like these 2 kind of ruling agencies that tell them where to go and what to do and who to kill and how to basically influence time to be on their side. So they're trying to kind of corrupt each other and take each other down while corrupting the timeline and kind of pushing it back and forth. It was good, but it took me longer to read than it should have because it's wordy and purple and flowery, and I still liked it, but probably not a new favorite. Then we have Bound by Firelight by Dana Swift. This was another NetGalley arc, and I had read the first book, which is Cast in Firelight. I have a full review if you want to check that one out. And I really, really liked it. And this book was good. It wasn't quite as good as book 1. It was definitely a second book, which I thought this was supposed to be a duology, but it feels at the end like it could be a trilogy. Like it's not, there was some resolution, but it wasn't wrapped up. Like it definitely feels like there's going to be another book coming out. So maybe that'll fix some of my issues, but it definitely suffers from second book syndrome. We are following in the first book our 2 main characters, and our girl is a princess, our boy is a prince, and they are betrothed from a very young age, but they don't like each other. Well, she don't like him. And they like write each other these like snarky notes, and they're like love notes, but they have like secret messages of snark, you know, rolled in, and it's great. And our main girl is a very powerful magic user, and in this world, you know, magic users end up with these like tattoos up their arms, but only one of her arm ends up tattooed, so she's really embarrassed to show the other one because it shows that she's like lacking power. And she's also like an underground cage fighter, which is kind of cool. And the love interest boy, who's her betrothed, is like a sweet cinnamon roll, but he's also kind of badass, but he's definitely a cinnamon roll, and you know I love me a cinnamon roll boy. And I loved it. And this book, when I say it suffers from second book, it suffers from something that I do not like in second books, and that is like, okay, the characters finally got together, And now in book 2, we're going to yank them apart and they're going to be apart like the entire book. Bro, why? We don't need that yanking apart to cause conflict. And then there was also like another female character that was brought in, and it really feels like she was just brought in just to cause romantic conflict, which she really didn't, but like it was just annoying. So yeah, I wasn't like the biggest fan, but I did like the story itself. And if there is a 3rd book, I will read it. If not, then it's kind of a lackluster ending for a series. All right, and to wrap up part 1 of this video, we are going to talk about the first of my 3 DNFs recently. And that is gonna be The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. And I got 100 pages in, I wanna say. A little over 100 pages in. And I just wasn't feeling it. Like, it was okay. I just never connected with any of the characters. It is kind of like younger YA maybe. We're following these people who are like this group of crows, and basically they tend for the dead, and they tend for like the people that are suffering with the plague, and they are the only people in this world that cannot catch the plague. But for some reason, instead of being like revered because they literally stopped the spread of this evil plague, they are blamed for the plague and like killed and looked down upon, even though they still have to show up to like save everybody's asses, which is like, it doesn't make sense. Maybe I just didn't get far enough into it. That they're like this like looked down upon class, but they're the only one that's literally stopping y'all from dying from the plague. And then we end up in this book with, you know, our main girl and then our main boy, who is like a prince, and he like fakes his death and he goes off with the crows and he's trying to basically defeat his evil mother. And that's as far as I got. I'm pretty sure there's romance, but I don't really know who the romance is with because there's kind of a love triangle. And honestly, I didn't really love either of them. There's the prince and his bodyguard. And you're like, which one's gonna be the romance? The prince or the bodyguard? I think it's gonna be the bodyguard, but I don't know. Honestly, it was okay, and I didn't care enough to finish it, so another DNF. All right, well, that is part 1 of my recent wrap-up. I didn't want to keep you guys here too long because I know this is gonna be hefty, and then I will post part 2 here soon. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Let me know what you think of any of these books, and if you have any romance books you think I'd like, recommend those because I'm curious now after reading Geekerella. All right, well, my name is Jessie and I will see you next time. Bye.